In the beginning, long before the first stone of the pyramids was cut from the earth, and before the scribes wrote the first hieroglyph upon papyrus, the land of Egypt was a paradise. It was the Zep Tepi, the first time. In those days, the gods did not live in the sky. They walked upon the black earth alongside men and women. Their skin shimmered like molten gold. Their bones were forged of silver, and their hair was the color of lapis lazuli. Ruling over this golden age was Osiris. He was the eldest born of the earth and the sky, the good king. He was tall and regal, with skin the color of the fertile crops that grew from the Nile mud. Osiris was beloved by all. He found the people of the Nile living in chaos and hunger, and he gave them the gifts of civilization. He taught them to break the earth with plows, to plant wheat and barley, and to brew beer. He taught them the laws of the stars and the proper way to worship the divine. Under his rule, there was no famine, and the concept of ma'at, truth, balance, and order, reigned supreme. Beside him on the throne sat his sister and wife, Isis. She was the great of magic, a goddess whose wisdom was sharper than any flint knife. She knew the secret names of all things, and with her words she could turn the tides and heal the sick. Together they were the perfect balance of male and female, earth and magic. But where there is light, there must be shadow, and the shadow of Osiris was his brother Set. Set was the ruler of the Red Land, the scorching, inhospitable deserts that surrounded the fertile valley. He was the god of storms, chaos, and foreign lands. He possessed a raw, terrifying strength, but his heart was a twisted knot of jealousy. Set looked upon his brother's kingdom, lush and green, and he looked upon the love the people had for Osiris, and his envy burned hotter than the desert sun. He did not want to serve, he wanted to rule. The plan Set devised was as elegant as it was cruel. He waited for the season when Osiris returned from his travels, teaching the people. He threw a grand banquet in his honor. He invited 72 conspirators and the most powerful nobles in the land. The hall was filled with music, the scent of roasting meat, and the flow of sweet wine. In the center of the hall, Set unveiled a mysterious object covered in a cloth. When he pulled the cloth away, the room gasped. It was a chest, a magnificent coffer made of the finest cedar wood from Lebanon. It was inlaid with ivory, ebony, and gold, and painted with beautiful spells of protection. It was the most desirable object anyone had ever seen. Set smiled, a smile that did not reach his cold eyes. He announced that he would give this priceless treasure to whomever fit perfectly inside it. It was a game, or so it seemed. One by one the guests tried. Some were too tall, others too short. Some were too broad, others too thin. The chest rejected them all, for Set had secretly measured Osiris's shadow while he slept and built the box to those exact dimensions. Finally, Osiris rose from his throne. The good king, whose heart was pure, could not imagine such betrayal from his own blood. He stepped into the box and lay down. It was a perfect fit. "It is yours, brother," Set whispered. Before Osiris could rise, the 72 conspirators rushed forward. They slammed the heavy cedar lid shut. They nailed it down and poured molten lead over the seams, sealing the king in darkness. The sounds of the party vanished, replaced by the terrifying silence of the coffin. Set and his men hauled the heavy chest to the banks of the Nile and hurled it into the dark waters. The river, which had always obeyed Osiris, now became his vehicle to the afterlife, carrying him away toward the great sea. Chaos descended upon Egypt. With Osiris gone, Set seized the throne. He ruled with an iron fist. The sky turned gray, the winds howled with sand, and the people learned the taste of fear. But Set underestimated the power of love and the tenacity of Isis. The queen did not collapse in despair. She rose in action. She cut off a lock of her hair and tore her robes in mourning. She set out across the land weeping, her tears swelling the river. She would not rest until she found the body of her husband. Her journey was long and full of sorrow. She followed the currents of the sea until she reached the distant city of Byblos. There she found that the chest had washed ashore. A magnificent tamarisk tree had grown around the coffin, enclosing it completely within its trunk. The king of Byblos, admiring the tree's size, had cut it down and used it as a pillar in his palace, unaware that a god lay dead within the wood. Isis, through magic and disguise, entered the palace. She eventually revealed her true divine form to the queen of Byblos and demanded the pillar. She cut open the wood and retrieved the chest. A great wail of grief escaped her lips, a sound so piercing that it was said to have stopped the birds in the sky. She brought the body back to the marshlands of the Nile Delta, hiding it in the tall papyrus reeds, intending to use her most powerful spells to breathe life back into him. But the eyes of evil are always watching. Set, hunting boar by the light of the moon, stumbled upon the hiding place. When he saw the face of his brother, his jealousy flared again. He realized that as long as the body existed, Osiris could return. Set drew his blade. In a frenzy of violence, he hacked the body of Osiris into 14 pieces. He took the head, the arms, the legs, and the torso, and he scattered them across the length and breadth of Egypt. He threw them into the river, into the desert, and into the fields. He laughed as he did it, his voice echoing like thunder. Now, he roared, let us see if he can be king of anything. When Isis returned, she found only blood and emptiness. Her grief was absolute, but she was not alone. She was joined by her sister Nephthys and the jackal-headed god Anubis. Together, they began the great search. For years they scoured the land. Wherever Isis found a piece of her husband, she built a shrine to confuse Set. They found the legs in the south, the head in the north. They found 13 pieces. The 14th, unfortunately, had been eaten by a fish in the Nile, cursing that fish forever. But Isis was the mistress of magic. She fashioned a replacement piece from gold and wax. Then Anubis performed the first great ritual of preservation. He washed the pieces, treated them with salts and oils, and wrapped the reassembled body in strips of light linen. This was the first mummy. Isis transformed herself into a kite, a bird of prey. She hovered over the body of her husband, beating her wings furiously to drive air into his still lungs. She chanted words that shook the foundations of the earth. For a brief, impossible moment, Osiris awoke. He could not return to the land of the living. His body was broken, and his place was now in the west, the land of the dead. But in that moment of mystical union, Isis drew the essence of life from him. She conceived a child. Osiris descended to the Duat, the underworld, where he became the lord of the dead and the judge of souls. But he left behind a seed of vengeance. Isis hid in the floating islands of the delta, deep in the thickets of Chemis. There she gave birth to Horus,